Yes, I was going to say, yeah, because in the field, if you don't know what's going on, you will get your ass handed to you very quickly.
very
You will
quickly.
get it
And,
handed to you
and,
very
and
quickly
you know why? You know why?
because everyone's life depends on it, and you need to know what's going on. You're a
Oilfield
liability
is
until you're
probably
an
the
asset.
most dangerous job out there, other than crab fishing.
Yeah,
And then people look at you like, yeah, you can get killed out here. And that's what you got to stop, you know. So,
yeah.
anyway. Or
Let
do
me.
you
All
want?
right. Here's another question. All right. Here. Let's try it this way. Who was one of the most important people when you first got started in oil and gas? Who was one of the most important people that you met?
My rig manager.
Your rig manager. Tell me a little bit about him. What was his name?
His name was Don Massey. He actually when I went into oil and gas, I was very young, and he kind of storied to the HR person and got me a job on the rig. I was 17, and I didn't have a place to stay, so I lived in his rig manager shack for uh, about a month until I got the money to rent an apartment. And then he showed me a lot of things to work on floors and everything. And then about 2 months later, he told me that I was going to work motors, and I worked motors for 4 or 5 months because that was back in the 80s when they really needed people. I mean, the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And then I was drilling when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most kids coming out of high school can't even imagine how to tie a tie, let alone start drilling.
Yeah, I was drilling, and his sons, his one of his sons was Farron, and the other one was uh, his other brother, and they worked for me for 4 years straight. I drilled for, I guess, 4 years. Then the oil field went wonky, of course, back in the 80s. It always does.
Yeah, it does.
So, but he was probably the most guy that showed me a lot about uh, how to work people and uh, how to uh, how to run a drilling rig mainly.
Hmm.
I'll never forget he seen me tripping pipe one time, and I know you'll understand this because you've been around rigs, but he'd come out there and he said, "Let me show you how to run this drilling rig." And I said, "Sure." All right. So he took the brake handle. He's my rig manager. Took the brake handle, and the blocks were up, just latched on. Uh, I run them up there. Was coming out of the hole, so I was going to let him back down. He raised that brake handle up, and he said, "That's where that belongs." And the blocks kept getting closer and closer and closer. And I said, "Don, are you going to do something?" And he said, "I'll wait." And the blocks go down about right where the A leg's in. He just reached over and pushed that clutch in just a little bit, eased in on the clutch and stopped the blocks. And then he went the other, and his son latched the elevators, and he just went the other way. It was the smoothest thing I ever seen. But he never used a brake. He said, "Don't wear my brakes out." It's exact words. But,
My goodness.
but that was back then where, if you did that today, yeah, their blocks would probably be laying on the floor. There would be a lot of things. So, but yeah, he was probably the most influential guy. And then another person that when I got out of that, I went back to farming, of course, and then couldn't make a living farming, so I answered an ad to a Votech. They wanted a person that actually knew something about drilling rigs and wanted to teach a class. They called it roughneck class.
Ah, right.
So I went in there and I interviewed for it. And the guy's name was Ron Walsmith, and he was the guy that was head of that department. And he said, "Well, I'm here." And first day of work, and he said, "All right." So he took me in there and he said, "I want you to write down everything you ever known about a drilling rig." gave me a big stack of Big Chief tablets about that big. I filled out, when I spent 2 weeks and filled them out and filled them out and filled them out, I was so proud. I went in there and threw that to him. I said, here you go. He said, you ain't done yet. He said, now put them in some kind of order where you can teach them. So I actually developed the first roughneck class. I guess you've probably taken it. It's rig pass.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm the guy that actually can think about that. You can thank me for all those hours you sat and listened to people. But yeah, he helped me do that. And then when I went to work for Trinidad Drilling, they hired me as a safety guy, and they asked me to teach the rig pass class because, go figure, I knew more about it than anybody.
Right.
So then we had about 3 accidents one year, and they came to me and they said, hey, we got to get these accident rates, and we had 2 fatalities. Yeah. And so they said, we want you to write a skills program, and they brought a lady in that knew how to develop one. And then, so I developed the first skills program for drilling rigs for each position. So wow. That's kind of where I was at. And then I was a safety director too, safety manager, and yeah, it actually puts a new light on your life whenever you do that.
Well, I appreciate that you said that. Because it's something that's very fascinating, right? We all go and we all work in the field, or the ones that do. And the job is very dangerous, and we know that.
Yep.
But it's very funny because as you're walking, doing the job, you're really more focused on the job, and you sort of secondhand the safety issues.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for safety to be really taken on board by somebody, but that saves lives, and it can change someone's life. For example, I know that you had an incident that you saw that caused you to actually create the product that you did. And I know it's not a very pretty story, but would you share the story with me of how you came to invent, or how you came to your product, your life-saving product?
Well, so I was a safety guy, and I answered a call, and they let a guy hang in a belt. They didn't know actually where he was, I guess. He hung there for, I don't know, 7, 8 hours.
You mean in a safety harness? He had fallen in, he was wearing a harness?
He was wearing a harness, and then he couldn't see. You can't self-rescue in a safety harness. People think you can, but it's tied off behind you, and you can't very well do that, especially if you're hurt or something like that. So he hung there, and we got him down, or they got him down. I'm the one that took him to the hospital. And so took him to the hospital, and they said, I sat in there with him, and then the doctor came in there and said, well, you've lost a lot of circulation in your legs. And so I sat in the room whenever they brought his wife in there, and they told her that they may have to cut his legs off. And so it made an impression on me. I actually walked outside because I had to. And then I thought to myself, man, there's got to be something. And I asked the good Lord, I said, Lord, you're going to have to do this because I can't. And the idea come in my head, and I said, all right, your idea is going to have to happen through you because I don't have that kind of money. I still don't. And so I put it on paper and got a patent on it through several deals, and that's where we're at today, actually.
I very much appreciate, because I've known you for a little while, Joey, and we've had occasion to speak on more than a few times. And one thing that I'm always impressed about is your faith, and how your faith really does inform so much of what you do, and how you approach everything. and the humanity when you see someone like that. Can you explain a little bit when you had a product, and I think that someone told you that you needed to name your products something different than the name of your company?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I love this. I love this. Tell me a little bit about how did you name your
So
products?
I was building a website. I actually got the money to build a website. So I called this guy to build a website and told him what I wanted. And of course, you have to fill out all the forms and all that good stuff. So I got a call from him one Saturday and he said, hey, need to talk to you. And I said, okay. He said, so your company's named Bayblock. I said, yes, sir. And then you're going to sell Bayblocks on the web. I said, well, that's what I thought I was going to do. He said, well, you need to actually name your product something else because it's not. He said, it just doesn't work like that. I'm horrible with names. I thought about it all Saturday. I mowed the yard and everything. So Sunday morning, I woke up and Lorinda was sitting at the table with the Bible. She always reads her Bible before church, and I try to. So anyway, sitting there reading the Bible, and I said, honey, I said, we're going to call it something different. And I explained it to her, why. And she looked up straight from her Bible and she said, well, call it Zacchaeus. He was the guy in the tree. And so I said, sure, we'll call it Zach, right? I just shortened it up to Zach because people wouldn't actually, I think the name fits. I really do. I have another model that I actually going to come out with. It's called the Gabe. The Gabriel, it's named after the angel Gabriel, actually, because all it's going to do is alert. And I'm going to make it about the size of a pencil. That's what I got on my mind. And so it'll be ready for like four-wheelers and kids falling off four-wheelers, and for her, the three-wheelers and horses, or whatever you fall off of. If you want something to know if somebody fell off something, it'll work.
Right.
So
As a matter of, I'm sorry, Joe, go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually named it. I actually pulled it a little bit. I'm going to go back into R&D with it, or research and development, because I want to get it smaller.
You want to get
One.
smaller. Well,
And,
let me take this opportunity to actually show the folks what we're talking about. And what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is we're actually looking at the Zach device. And this device is designed to notify people when someone has fallen and they're in a harness. So you can see over here that it's basically a lanyard on two sides with a D-ring. This one has D-rings, and there's a black box. But what happens is that you would attach this to your harness, and then the other side to the line. And what happens is, just in case that you fall, this is like almost, and this is my words, not Joey's, but it's almost like a seat buckle. It looks like a seat buckle. What'll happen is it'll pop out from in here, and it will automatically send a signal. I think it was going to drop a pin and send text messages. I think up to 5 people that you designate. So that way, anyone who's working alone, if they ever have an issue and they fall, someone can be notified. I know
yeah,
that we've had this. Go ahead,
yeah,
Joey.
and that's another thing too. On that point, if even deer hunters, let's say if you're an older gentleman like me and you want to go into a tree stand, to say you have a heart condition or whatever, it just takes 17 pounds for it to deploy.
Only 17?
Only 17 pounds. But if you have 17 pounds on your fall protection, you're using your fall protection wrong. You're leaning against it. Because usually it takes about 6 pounds by the time you get, that's the most you could ever have on it, is 6 pounds. But anyway, it just takes 17 pounds to deploy, so just turn around and deploy it. If you see that you're getting in trouble, having a heart attack, if you're sick or whatever. And it does the same, it'll do the same thing.
Wow. That didn't, pardon me, but I need to say this because how amazing that I didn't think of that. You're right. you don't even have to be in a harness. You don't even necessarily have to be in the harness if you have some kind of an issue and you need people to know where you are and you need to get an emergency signal out. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
just deploy it. That's all you got to do.
Just deploy
There,
it, right?
there, there are. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, if you don't mind, about the competitors. There are
Please.
some stuff out there. One of them is called Blackline. The other one's Grace Manufacturing makes it. What those are systems, and they have little buttons that you hang on your shirt. Is what they are. Blackline
Mm-hmm.
especially. They work off an anemometer. So if you move too fast, it'll go off. If you and they cost I don't know $3,000 or $4,000 to get
Oh,
set up
wow.
for a company. Yeah, and then I think they're like $800 or $900 a piece, and then there's a service charge. So I'm very cost effective as far as that concerns. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to make sure people could use it. And to be honest with you, it's all over our website. That is actually our motto of our company, is to reduce risk and save lives. And
Yes.
that's what we're going to do.
And you are absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, let's go to your main page. And this is the next generation of fall protection. And here's an image of it as I was describing earlier, with the pin being deployed and pulled out. And here are some very hard facts about harness hang syndrome. Part of what happens, and I know that we've had this discussion before as well, is that a lot of times, you'll have operators out in the field who are, you'll have operators in the field who are working by themselves. And a lot of
Yeah.
times they may have to climb ISO tankers, as I used to have to do, and they have to strap, do different things. And if something happens to that person, no one else is responsible for looking for someone hanging in between ISOs. And especially if someone falls, which unfortunately, too many incidents have happened where people have fallen, they've hit their head, and they are unable to do any kind of rescue or let anyone know because they've been knocked unconscious. Something like this is literally a lifesaver. And that is one of the reasons why, Joey, I wanted to bring this to the attention of my audience, because we already work in a very dangerous field. And I remember very well Mr. Jay Miller, rest in peace. He had explained to us at safety that the number one responsibility of the employer was to engineer out as many safety issues as possible. Like PPE, for example, is a last line of defense, because by definition, everything should be engineered. All risks should be engineered out. And I take this very much to heart as a device that it's one of those things where, you know what they say, like sometimes they say about a gun, it's better to have one and not need it than need it and not have it. And I really see this as an investment in that. But that's my opinion, Joey. And that's why I wanted you to be on the show, because you really have created something really unique here. Please.
Well, I appreciate that. I've got some other ideas. We're going to make for the lack of a better word, we're going to make one that's called the ZAC HD, and it's going to be for facilities like warehouses and gas facilities, all your tie-off points, so you'll know. Even in pipeline facilities, they're all known. They're pre-made.
They're designated tie-off points.
They're designated. Yes, they are. And so what we're going to do is hang the ZAC HDs there, and they'll actually go probably peer-to-peer to the cloud, wireless somehow. And then it'll go up on somebody's computer or go directly to a SCADA system on the pipeline. It'll come up in the control room and say, hey, you got somebody that fell, use a bell.
Wow. Yeah. That one thing so obviously I can discuss how innovative this is and how the iterations keep getting better and better. But one thing I want to do is take a quick step back and say how much I really appreciate, Joey, that, you don't stop. And I think that that's also very endemic with our cohorts in oil and gas. We're people that can't stop because the
Yeah.
world depends on what we do. And we have to keep moving forward no matter what it is. And so, Joey, I look at you, and you're a gentleman that you could have retired. You could have done something else. You could have made this somebody else's problem, but you didn't. And I think one of the very best definitions of an entrepreneur I've ever read was someone who sees a problem that's not their own, but decides that they have to solve it.
Yeah.
And I really see that in you. You have a very deep entrepreneurial streak, and you keep giving back to the community in a life-saving way. And that's what I wanted to say. So I want to thank you for that, Joey.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. I try to, my wife always tells me that I'm going to wear my brain out one of these days, but once you get something on your mind, it consumes you. I don't know how else to explain it, but it does. It consumes you until you find the solution and actually deploy the solution. Then it's still going to consume you. So it's actually, for lack of a better word, it's self-preservation for me. I mean, that's basically that's what it is, because it's I dabble a little bit in poetry, and I've actually woke up in the middle of the night and told my wife, asked me, said, "What are you doing?" And I looked and I said, "Well, I got to go put this on paper." Because you got to get it out of your head. And basically, that's the best way I can explain it, because that's actually what happened to me. And you can call it a lot of things. You can call it entrepreneurship, but it comes from the Lord. And that's the way I look at that. And if it didn't get it out there, then I wouldn't be doing what I was supposed to. Just put that.
And isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? It's the two sides of the coin. People see, and I understand this because I feel exactly the same way about my podcast and about what I'm doing. People think, oh, I'm doing this because it must be cool, this or that. No. You don't get it. I don't run it. It runs me. Because like you said, if I don't give this the attention, then I fall apart, because this was given to me. Your gifts were given to you. My gifts were given to me. And it's like that itch that you cannot scratch if you're not working on it. And I know it, and I respect it.
You have to be very careful with that too. And I'll give you a little advice, and advice to everybody. If you come up with an idea and it consumes you like that, you have to either have a very, very good family that surrounds you, right? But it is extremely hard to get people on the same page that you are. And that's the main thing, is getting people to understand where you're coming from and why you want to do it. And once they understand that, then it gets a lot easier.
Now, I appreciate that you said that, because this is important, not just to you, but it's important to everyone, which is, how do you communicate and effectively share your vision so people can see it and buy into it? What are some pieces of advice you could give to someone that's trying, like you did, trying to share their vision with people that are very important?
Talk to people, be honest with them. That's the main thing. And most of the time you can tell, which I can tell probably, I've done it so long now, it's beautiful. But I can tell you within about 30 seconds whether somebody's going to be on the same page. Because you'll either get two deals, you'll either get, well, that's a very good idea. Or you'll get somebody that backs up and says, wow, that can really do that? And you say, yeah, you can do that. And But as far as sharing your idea and trying to get it to where people can understand it, I have a lot of experience in that. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like teaching. And that's a lot of big deal with this deal. It's going to take a lot of education for people because, hey, they got to understand what it does and why. You know, I got one more thing, and I'll tell you. But OSHA put out some guidance in 2011. They come out with this guidance and said, all right, so orthostatic intolerance, what we're trying to stop here, you know, you all it did was say that you must get to them as quickly as possible. That's it.
That was
And
it.
then they listed the symptoms of orthostatic intolerance and told you how to treat the person. So that kind of threw up a red flag to me. And I'm saying, okay, why are we doing that? But that's your federal government work too. Anyway,
Right.
So basically that's why. And I always tell people, they said, well, why'd you do it? And I said, well, that's the reason right there. If I saved one person's life, I'm good. And I'm pretty sure it will. Really sure it will. And
Oh,
like I said, I've got some other ideas too.
You're a one man idea machine, and I think that we know that. Anyone who knows you knows that. I think, what did your wife say? You're going to wear your brain out. But one thing
Yes.
that I like that you said was, and seeing here, this is the crux of the entrepreneur. You said, so OSHA had some guidelines, and they said that you must get to the person ASAP, and then this is what it looks like when they have fallen. So what did it do? It left a big gaping hole
Yep.
on what exactly you need to do to get to them ASAP. And that's exactly the space that you came in. And, we all complain about the government, but the government in itself right there opened the door to private enterprise to come and
Yep.
find those solutions. You're an American success story, like straight up. Like the government says XYZ. You look at it and you say, yes, I will follow that, but it needs this.
Yep.
And now you've created a product that are going to save potentially hundreds, if not thousands of lives a year across the globe, because
Yep.
there's more than enough people in harnesses everywhere. Like you're saying, in factories, in refineries, offshore oil, everywhere. And then recreationally, that's another really exciting thing about it, is that the product is also as it is, which is not specifically a consumer product. It is still for what you get, a very value packed for the consumer. So, like you said, I don't have to wait. If I ride motorcycles, I can get one of those myself right now, and I can attach it to the bike and attach it to me. And if I come loose from my bike, it'll automatically send it.
Yep. Yeah. All
I
you got
think
to
for
do is move about 6 inches.
that's it. Um, I really applaud you, Joey, on so many different levels. One, idea machine. Two, your deep history, right, with oil and gas. And we want to give it up to Don Massey, because
Yeah.
he's I think that he gave you I think he wired your head and your butt right properly at the beginning for the career that you had, because look where you are today. Um, this is just tremendous. It's just tremendous.
Well,
Um,
Don's been dead for about, gosh, I don't know. He passed away probably 10, 15 years ago. But most of the people that I worked with are gone. And that's what you have to understand about the oil field. There's a lot. What happened back in the 80s when the oil field went down, we lost a lot of expertise.
mm,
And if I can give any advice to people in the oil field, is lean on that. I don't care if they're old people, doesn't make any difference. Lean on that expertise, because those guys knew exactly what to do. And most of them could take apart a drilling rig and put it back together within about, in their sleep, in other words. So
Right.
But
No, you're right. Institutional knowledge is something that is important in every industry, and especially in ours. Um, es- we oil and gas does take a lead in technology because we have to,
yeah,
and so that also brings an increase in turnover in workers and knowledge. And sometimes you have some older guys that, for whatever reason, they can't get on with the new technology, or they're
yeah,
right there with it.
yeah.
And that's going to determine how you go in this industry because everything is technologically driven. But we need to have institutional knowledge. You're absolutely right, Joe.
A lot of it is technology driven. A lot of the new rigs are. I mean, I don't even know if I could drill on a new rig now because it's so technologically advanced. Uh, I always tell people this story that we used to drill straight holes in the ground, and if it got crooked, you're in trouble. Right now, that's what they do. They kick off and go laterals. Right.
Right.
So technology has really, really changed. I think for the better. I do. I think that there's a lot of technology that needs to be used in the field. AI is one of them. I'm pretty sure one of these days you'll find a drilling rig out there that probably don't have any hands on it. It's all
Mm.
AI.
I think
Uh,
that time is. I think that time is very, very well at hand. Although, I used to work for the city of Midland,
yeah,
and the superintendent there, he would ask me these questions, and he would say, "Is this unit in manual or in auto?" It's in auto.
yeah,
Is it in manual or auto? It's in auto. Okay, so let me ask you a question, operator. If the units are in auto, why do I need you?
that's right.
I said, when they go wrong, when they break, when something happens. And he's like, exactly, exactly. That's why we have you.
Yeah,
Because if the system would work, then I wouldn't need you. But they're here just in case of it.
yeah.
Um,
I think it'll change the technology. I really
yeah.
do. So, but
What do you think are the three most important? And there's maybe a long list for you, but what are the three most important qualities in a leader today if they're going to come out into oil and gas?
number one thing is I would say me drilling and working people as long as I have, or as long as I did, is number one thing: listen to your people.
Listen. Mhm.
Yeah, and then uh, make your judgments not only for them, but I mean not only but by them, but for them. In other words, you can have the best hand in the world out there, and I've had some very very good people work for me, and you can actually squelch him down to where he won't work for, or he won't do certain things, and let them do their job. It's very specific out there what you do, and if you're trained for it, which that's another thing, is uh, managers need to actually rely on training a lot. You, the days of putting somebody out there on a drilling rig and saying, "Okay, you're roughneck today." Well, that okay, yeah, I can roughneck. Well, can you roll pipe? Well, sure I can. Right? Anybody knows how to do that. And then the days of what you need to do is go out there and say, "Okay, then roll pipe. Show me how you do it." And then you sign off on that, and that way that's accountability because you taught him how to do it, he showed you how to do it, then you ought to know how to do it. It's a two-way accountability thing there, and that's what got into us. That's what really got a lot of people hurt back then, especially in the early '80s and late '90s, uh, because they didn't do that. They just threw you out there and said, "Here you go. If you worked on a farm, you ought to be able to do this." Didn't show you how to do it. I guess you automatically get that from your head. I don't know. But But the main thing is to listen to people and actually take their input has a lot to do with it. So
Right. And
that's what
no, you're absolutely right. When someone is hired to do a job, if they've been trained to do that job and that's what they do and they do it well, one would assume they're expert in what they do. How am I going to swan in from an office or from Houston or whatever and come in and pretend that I know what your job is and how you should do it better when you're the one who's doing it 14 hours a day?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had a little bit different deal in my safety career,
Mhm.
especially on drilling rigs, because you have to, if you're a safety guy or a safety manager or whoever, you have to earn their respect. That's the number one thing in the oil field. It's a lot of it has to do with respect. If people respect you, then they'll bend over backwards for you.
Very true.
But I didn't have to do that because they respected me because I came from where they are. I came up the ranks and I was a floor hand and I was a derrick hand and I was a motor hand and a driller. And they looked at me and says, "Yep, you know what's going on out here." I said, "Yeah, I do." And I could go out there and correct them as far as body language or body positions or whatever, and they'd listen to me because I've been there. I mean, so it was a lot easier for me. Uh,
Yeah.
I always pity the guys that come out there and they're safety guys and straight out of school and didn't know anything about a drilling rig or the oil field,
Right.
and that was bad.
Yeah. Because
They shouldn't throw them to the wolves like that.
yes, I was going to say, yeah, because in the field, if you don't know what's going on, you will get your ass handed to you very quickly.
Very
You will
quickly.
get it
And,
handed to you
and
very quickly.
you know why?
Mm.
You know why?
Because everyone's life depends on it, and you need to know what's going on. You're
Oil
a
field
liability
is
until you're an
probably the
asset.
most dangerous job out there, other than crab fishing.
Yeah.
And then people look at you like, "Yeah, you can get killed out here,"
Hmm.
and that's what you got to stop. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's basically my take on giving advice to people.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And that's huge because there's so many people who want to get into this industry. There's people who are going to be listening to this
Yeah.
that are either want to get into the industry or they deal with people who are coming in. And there is a change in the oil and gas industry. Everything over time, and this is my personal perspective, right? I think that over time, everything becomes more professionalized, everything becomes more commodified, and just even in a very simple way, like let's look at YouTube, right? Like when
Yeah.
YouTube started, it was cute cats and silly videos. I mean,
Right.
today YouTube again has become corporatized, professionalized, and you just are not going to make it, say, unless you've got really good content and really high production value.
Yeah.
Because that's just the direction everything is going, because people are demanding more. And they rightly should. We live in an amazing world, in an amazing country where we keep innovating new things. We keep coming up with better ways to do things. And so therefore, right, the audience is expecting that and they're demanding that. That's why I think it's, again, so amazing that your product,
Yeah.
to bring it back to that, because I'm excited about it, it brings it back to something as simple as saving someone's life. Because this whole 40 minutes or whatever we've been talking is useless to someone who's passed away.
Yeah. It
Useless.
is.
It's useless. Unless we can save someone's life that they can see another day, go home to their families, then nothing that we do is worth it. Nothing is worth it. Nothing. We'd all just be fishing, right? We wouldn't do this. So,
There's no saying out there, "I'd rather be fishing," right?
right.
I mean,
But Joey, I really appreciate the time that you've taken in sharing some of the background. I would like to know if you would come back on the show and you would share with us your developments as things move forward. I know that I'm very excited and interested. I know that my audience is very excited and interested, and we want to invite you back.
sure, no problem. Anytime you know my telephone number. I'm an old safety guy. I'll answer the telephone night or day.
That's true. And bless your heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me do this. This obviously is Mr. Joseph Meyers of Bay Block. Let me remind you one more time. Let me bring you over here to his website, and you're going to find him at bayblock.com. It's BAY hyphen BLOCK.com. Bayblock.com. And the product is the Zach. When you come here and take a look, you're going to learn all about the product. You're going to learn of how it came about, support, different accessories that you can get for it. It is absolutely worth it. I'm going to put all the contact information for Joey and Bayblock in the description below. So I would really want you to be able to check that out and make sure that you absolutely give Bayblock your time. Check it out, and you can also follow Joey on LinkedIn. You got last words for us?
I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I think we're even on TikTok. I don't run them.
You're just everywhere. Well, we're gonna put all of your links in the description below, and thank you very much, Joey, for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to catch you on the next episode of the Oilfield Leader Podcast. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. How was that, Joey?
Hey, it was good. It was very good, dude.
Yeah.
I think it'll be well. I was going to tell you, I did open.
The Oilfield Leader Podcast is brought to you by executive producer Daniel Corral, executive producer Jim Lynn, executive producer and voice talent, me, Mad Mac, production assistant Caleb Knott. The Oilfield Leader Podcast is produced and hosted by Christian Lombardini. Copyright 2024. The Oilfield Leader and Christian Lombardini, all rights reserved. Peace.